So welcome everybody to Wellbeing Starts Here, exploring how you can actually heal yourself in 2025 and beyond. We'll do a couple of introductions and I'll give you a basis of sort of what we're actually going to go through and what we're going to talk about. So the first question is why we get sick and how we can actually heal. I think this is a really interesting question to ask, because when we actually delve deeper, those two questions are missing in our medical system. Why you get sick, if you even look it up, the cause of it's not actually really understood. It's like, oh, you've got a bacterial infection, give yourself let's get an antibiotic. Oh, you've got something else, a steroid. Antibiotics and steroids are the biggest drugs that are used mainly within the medical profession. Now, I want to just say one thing about the medical profession. Some of my best friends are doctors. I love doctors. No, not a problem with doctors. The medical system, as we'll discuss, is the challenging bit, and we'll come a little bit more. And the question, how can I heal? That's also very, very challenging as well, because what's actually gone on within the system. Anyway, what we're going to do is a couple of introductions. You'll meet me, you'll meet Adrienne. You'll meet Adrienne. I get her name wrong all the time. So, and we've had this discussion, and she says, how long have you known me for? And I go, well, I'm really sorry. I still can't get it right. I'm still doing the French rather than the English. So we're going to explore the challenges we face in 2025 and with getting and staying well. Share the latest understandings of why we get sick and how you can heal. Now, this hasn't come about from just me doing a little bit of, understanding, taking a couple of courses. I've been at this over 33 years now, and you'll understand a little bit more. So and I didn't come to it through, oh, I want to go off and learn about this and I want to be involved in healing. I came through it being kicked in my ass, like most of us do, right? In the healing field. And I'll show you solutions that are medically and scientifically proven. That's the balmy stuff. This isn't me going, oh, it's nice, wah, woo woo la la, let's all clap hands and sing and do yoga and pray to the God of whatever. Now, all of that stuff has a meaning and it does work in many, many areas. So I'm not dishing that. I want to know why, and also then use the same understanding to assist ourselves to heal. Now, are you comfortable, or do you need to get... Great, okay.
Not your fault.
Okay. I'm just aware, that's all. And we'll do a demonstration. That's always good fun. I love to do demonstrations, and also to what to do next. We have a retreat coming up. There's also other things that we're doing, but we're just trying to find our way through in France as to how can we assist people to heal and also not stress ourselves out to high heaven. You'll learn about me and my knee in a moment. Anyway, this is me. I can't, it's actually in, is it Rocamadour? Yeah. So that's me in Rocamadour. My wife took the picture and I don't know, anyway, doctorate. So who am I? I've been doing this for over 30 years. I've been involved in what I would call energetic healing. I've written 3 books, you'll see them in a moment. I've taught this stuff around the world. I've traveled to Japan, Australasia, haven't been to Russia yet. I still want to do that one. And everybody's, aren't they? But why? Now, here's the question, why? Why are we so anti that? It's the same thing, same people doing the same thing over and over again. Let's create a war. Let's then profit from it. And then point a finger at, say, Putin, or let's all turn around and have a go at Trump or someone else. It's all a distraction. It's, we're going to do all this stuff over here. Oh, look at this hand. Well, we're just fiddling around and just changing all the other stuff underneath. And, oh, look at my hand. That's what it is. So we need to understand how this truly works. And then from that, you can get into a different space. And it's the same with healing, right? It's exactly the same. So why did I get involved with this? I think this is a really good question. In fact, I might just share the screen. The reason why is my mum. My mum and my dad had a horrible, horrible divorce. I mean, really nasty. And she moved away, and you'll understand from the UK if you know the UK, but if you don't, then she moved a long way away. Practically, was it about an 8 to 10 hour drive away? I lived in Bristol, and she moved up to near Newcastle, to Darlington, actually. And in that situation, we only saw her during the common Christian holiday periods and summer holidays. So Christmas and Easter, and then summer holidays. And I'm the middle one of 3 boys. And you can imagine, you lose your mum. I was 8. I remember the day when my dad said, your mum wants to go and see you. And I had no inkling, nothing, didn't understand what was going on, no inkling whatsoever as to what was happening. And my dad said, your mum wants to see us. So we all went up to, there's all 3 boys, in front of the main bedroom. And my older brother went in, and we're waiting around. My younger brother was there, didn't know what was going on. And suddenly he walks out, he runs out actually crying his eyes out. Said, well, this is going to be fun, isn't it? You know, well, I didn't have a sense of humor at that age, at 8. Well, I suppose I did, but. So I walked in there, and she turned around and says, I'm leaving your father and I'm not coming back. And I remember climbing all over her, just saying, don't go, don't go, don't go. It's horrible. Yeah, I mean, terrible at age 8. And I walked out going, I was stunned. And my younger brother, same thing. But my father actually said as soon as she left, she had Carmen curlers. Do you remember the Carmen curlers? You ever come across those? Those sort of heated things. Sorry?
They're still on the go.
They're still on the go, yeah, absolutely. And they're sort of things that you put in your hair, and they sort of make your hair. Anyway, she had those, and I still remember the smell of that. Quite interesting. So then, and it's association. She left, and my dad sort of said it was amazing as kids because you didn't show any emotion. All you want to know where you're going to get fed. But that wasn't really the case, because deep down it was still stored inside the system somewhere. Later on, age 12, around 11 or 12, I mean, we saw my mum, and she basically then got breast cancer. And then subsequently had the latest, best, most amazing stuff. She did all the chemotherapy. She had radiation, full mastectomy. She even showed me, one particular time, just showed me the scar. I mean, horrific. And then she subsequently passed away. And I remember the day, you know, why are these things so important to us? You know, I remember the day my dad walked in my bedroom. He would normally just open the door and go, hey, you know, time to get up. But this time he sat on the end of the bed, wouldn't even look me in the eye, and turned around and said, I'm really sorry to tell you, son, but your mum died last night. I was like, WTF. I didn't understand those words at that time, but, you know. And it was on that day, I remember going to school. I went to a really good quality school in Bath, or Bath, as some people call it. And I remember Bath is built on hills, but walking up this place and going, damn it, I'm going to find, and I swore, I used the C word, I'm going to find a cure for this cancer, right? Little did I know that actually I don't cure anybody of anything. The only person I've ever cured is myself. And it's the same for you. I think that's a really important statement. And what is cancer anyway? So we have to really just start to break all of that stuff down to understand what is actually happening. So I've been doing this for a long, long time. I've also had a herniated disc that lasted 1.5 years. That the only solution was possible surgery. I didn't do that. I knew I could heal it, and I did. And you'll see a couple of pictures of that. And plus then I've been also working with clients, as I said, around the world, and teaching this stuff. And also doing research into how healing really works, which is opposite to the major paradigm. So here are a couple of the books. So that was my first book. It was Why Am I Sick? The very first one was the bottom one there. And then the other one is the one that was taken on by Hay House in 2008. So that's a good read on a weekend. Yeah, it's a good book. The other one's not very well edited, and I haven't changed it because it's a nightmare of a job to do these things. But they're both available on Amazon. And I was involved in an organization called Meta Medicine, and before that I was researching. I came across the work of a very maverick doctor called Dr. Gert Hammer, who I had some dealings with, and very interesting man, very challenging, probably people would say bipolar. He lost his son to a very interesting accident where he was shot, and his son was on holiday, and but Gert Hammer then went, isn't there he developed testicular cancer. He went, why did I get testicular cancer following the loss of my son? That's really odd. And so he started looking at the ovaries, because he knew embryonically that the testicles and the ovaries are from the same area. And it was easier to work with women as a medical doctor, so he worked in gynecological centers, and he started to notice that there was a pattern between the loss of a loved one, including pets, even birds, right? It was a pet, and the onset of ovarian cysts and cancers and the like. So he said, well, there's a link, and he wrote some papers and was told, no, you can't publish that. There is no, absolutely, it's in Germany, right? No psychological link, none whatsoever. Emotions have nothing to do with disease, period, end of. I mean, this is back in the 1980s, right? So, or 70s, 80s. And he went, no, there is. And he was able to put lots and lots of case studies together, and he was kicked out of this and kicked out of that. And anyway, he pieced a lot of stuff together. The only challenge with Hammer's work, although it's absolutely amazing, is that he didn't do any citations. He didn't do any medical stuff. He said he got all the information from his dead son, he channeled it, and it was just like, so people then discredited him. And the other problem, I think, with Hammer's work is the way that he looked at therapy was very archaic, I suppose, really old. How do you actually heal someone? Because we've gone, what are we now, 50 odd years on, 55 almost, since he really came up with his major discoveries. And a lot has happened in that time. So you'll see from my third book, which I'll show you in a second, that was my second one, because I started writing a book for Hay House called, they want to call it Meta Healing, and I then changed it to How Can I Heal, and started writing it, and then a problem occurred. So I started looking into it, and I was looking into genetically modified foods. Anybody come across that? I was living in Canada, and was eating, say, mayonnaise, and going, why do I feel so horrible? And one of my students turned around and said, well, they are using genetically modified oils in that. And I went, oh, and eggs, oh, and everything else inside of that. Most Canadian stuff came from America. It was all genetically modified. And, why can't we just have normal food? Because in the UK and a lot of Europe, it was labeled, but none of that's labeled in Canada and America. It still isn't. So I wrote all this stuff and went, there's a big, large organization who are lobbying governments, and they do not want us to know what's actually going on inside the very food that we're supposed to eat. And it's like, so this started me off on a journey, and there we go. And that then led to the real book, which Hay House never took on. Actually, I phoned them up and said, do you want it? And they went, no, your contract's out of date. So I said, oh, okay, don't worry, I'll self-publish. And so that's that one, and there's one at the back there. So anyway, then there's me, and then there's Adrienne. Adrienne and I are working together because we like the whole idea of doing some great work in this local area, and we don't really want to be jumping on jets. I've done a lot of jetting around the world, right? And I just, did you notice that flying was great fun, wasn't it? You know, you had your little bag and it was great. But now you're a criminal. You know, put your hands up. You are a criminal. Oh no, of course you're not. You know, you've got all the scan and all the EMF from that, and then they're watching you and seeing you've got a suspicious behaviour. You just go, really? Oh, you know, it was fun, and in a line, and but it was fun, and now it's like stressful. I don't know what happened, apart from I think the TSA decided that they were going to again, same stuff, isn't it? 9/11, same stuff, different day. So I don't know quite why we're getting some feedback there. I just switched off the speakers, but maybe it is. Don't worry. So Adrienne, can I tell them?
Yes.
Yeah. So she's here. She's been 20 years as a complementary therapist and well-being coach, and worked in the public and private sector. She'll tell you about some of the stuff you've done. We both live in southwest France, but you've been here longer than me. And for 20 years, your passion has been to help people free themselves from stress, anxiety, and trauma, and negative emotions and thought patterns that are preventing them from moving forward in their lives. That's a direct quote. You can't actually say anything because I got the microphone, sorry. I'll get her to say some stuff later. And give her the microphone, but we're friends, and she's trained with me, and we're both interested in this healing paradigm that doesn't follow what we have been led to believe is how we should heal, which again seems to be all smoke and mirrors. Anyway, that's my take on it. So why take charge of your own healing? Anybody got any ideas of that? Why would you want to do that? I'm going to repeat some of these things on here so people can hear it. So nobody's going to, what did you say? It's got anybody here and nobody's going to do it for you. So it's about being responsible for yourself. Yeah. No one knows yourself better than you. In fact, a doctor friend of mine turned around and said, it really is about being your own doctor. And I thought, that's a great statement. Really nice, you know, be your own doctor. Anybody else got other thoughts about that? So Adrienne's mum got into these things back in the early 80s. Apple cider vinegar. And doing zone therapy.
Yeah, a bit like.
Oh, yeah, pressure points, yeah. Yeah, so Adrienne was saying her mum's into it, and basically she became her own doctor anyway. I think there's another thing. Whose body is it? It's really worthwhile understanding how it works, and then just taking control of it and working with a team that can include medical doctors. And we'll talk about one of the things that I'm passionate about, which is emotional clearing or energetic clearing or whatever, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And I know Adrienne's the same, because I've noticed this. Where is that in medical work? You walk into a doctor and say, I've just been through this horrific divorce, or I've just lost the most precious child in my life, or this situation at work is absolutely horrible. And the doctor says, I haven't time to deal with that, and I don't know what that's about. And they don't. They're not taught anything about that. It isn't their fault either. As an individual, they go, I've spoken to them, they say, we know, but there is nothing. I mean, I can give you a happy pill. Go and take a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, an SSRI, if you don't know what that is, which is a happy pill. Prozac is the one that most people have heard of. So, although that's not that popular anymore. So I think it's really important that we understand why we need to take charge of our own healing. Because it's not what we think it is. And there's some good things. So, and this I found really interesting, because what you're told to believe about healing. So I'm going to read it out, all right? Your DNA determines whether you're going to get disease or not. Water happens to be in your body, but it has nothing to do with healing, which is another really interesting thing. You are molecularly 99.4% water, the number of molecules inside you. But it's got nothing to do with healing. No, absolutely nothing. Yeah, but how does it really work? You heal using drugs by killing viruses, bacteria, and fungi. Okay, that's how you heal. Chemotherapy and radiation heals cancer. Okay, I'm not saying we're told and this is what's used to the media. I'm not saying that these are the statements that are true. I'm just saying that's what we are told to believe. No place for God in healing. Now, I don't know whether people are religious or not. I don't mind if you're not. We can use the word creator. And the way I like to put it is, hang on a minute, we're a little planet in the middle of nowhere, in a solar system that's revolving around this sun with a load of other planets around it in a bigger thing, and then how many, I think it's billions and billions and billions of different galaxies, and we live in one galaxy called the Milky Way. Hang on a minute, there's something else perhaps out there that, to deny something else is I think is limiting us. That's the way I look at it. So if you don't believe in God, you don't believe in creator, that's fine. But if you, does that mean to say we have to go and stand in front of a man, usually, more women there, and be led by that individual who's read a very good book and follow that? That's a different question. I'm not looking at that. I'm looking more at the energetics of it. Does that make sense? So this isn't a place for religion and preaching. Sunlight is bad for you. How many people believe that? Stay out of the sun, put as much sunscreen on you as possible, and don't have it. No, okay. Earthing the body is nonsense. Actually, I should check that. Earthing the body. Electromagnetic fields are safe. They're absolutely guaranteed. There's no research. Anyway, genetically modified organisms are safe. Vaccines are safe and they're effective. Interesting one. LED lights are safe. Mold is no problem in anyway. It's absolutely fine. High fructose corn syrup that's put in practically all processed foods is actually okay for you. Grains are actually okay for you. Some grains are alright, but a lot of them. Polyunsaturated fats are good for you, especially your heart. All right. Saturated fat is dangerous and causes you to get fat and get heart disease. Meat is bad for you. Being vegan is super, 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 super healthy. I'm nothing against veganism. It's absolutely fine. People want to do that, but it's marketed as being the way forward, especially in our present system. Stress and disease are not linked. It's incorrect. Okay. We have to delve deeper as to understand why. And the one I always come across is DNA, that actually DNA determines your disease. So a very interesting study, I can't remember exactly when it was done, took two astronauts, I think it was actually just very recently in 2015, something like that. Two identical twin astronauts. Can you believe they actually found two? It's amazing, it's twins. Both been up into the International Space Station. And Mark Kelly is the one on the left with the moustache, and Scott is the one on the right. They're identical twins. Anyway, Scott lived in space for 340 days. I think it's one of the longest that's been up there. It's a long, long time. And Mark stayed on Earth, and they tested them during this particular time, testing their DNA destruction and whatever else was going on. They've got identical DNA. Identical. And what they found out was, the basic theory is if two people should age at the same time, shouldn't they? Technically, if their DNA was identical, they should be. What they found was that Scott, the one on the right here, aged 10 years, being 1 year up there. Seriously, like, massive aging. The basic conclusion that they came up with was that our environment influences how we age and various sort of other things. And that's a very useful, very well-grounded, properly researched piece of evidence, I think, that says, hang on, our environment can change what goes on and affects our health. So why take charge of your healing is because the whole of our world has been somewhat captured particularly by a group of a big, large corporate organization called BlackRock. And I'm nothing against corporate organizations, but have you ever come across BlackRock? Yeah. BlackRock is owned by, in fact, there's two of them. They're all one of the same. Vanguard, I think, and BlackRock, all one of the same company. And you came across BlackRock and Vanguard's influence because they're all part of an organization called the World Economic Forum, and they direct what happens inside the world along with their policies to make money. BlackRock and Vanguard are interested in making money. That's it. They're an insurance company. Actually, most of their work comes from insurance companies. So they've invested in Diageo, LVMH, you'll notice some of these companies, Viacom, Fox, Virgin, they've invested in all these, Kraft, CNN, P&G, Pepsi Cola, all these companies are all being invested in by this company, and they practically own the Western business world. And they also own all the pharmaceutical, they have interest in all the pharmaceutical companies. And you have an insurance company which your job is to make money, right? So that people can increase their wealth. I'm guaranteed you can't get away from it. If you have an insurance policy or if you've got an investment policy, it will be linked directly back to this organization. So their whole focus is, and what they're interested in, is how can we increase the ongoing wealth greater than inflation? That's it. It isn't evil, it isn't nasty. These people should not be shot. Some of the individuals that run it, they're not actually out to destroy people's lives, because that's not on their agenda. Their agenda is money. Money, 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 at all costs. Anybody gets in the way of making money, you're immediately taken out. That's the way they think about it. They just discredit you. And that's what happened. We saw that during the years, didn't we, at 2020 and beyond. And that's where a lot of it came from. So why do you need to take charge? It's because you need to understand that is their agenda. That is the agenda. That's how it works. Having lived in Canada, directly opposite the US, I saw it for all its reality. You look at Trump and go, rah, 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 rah. Everybody gets angry with Trump. You face point and they say, oh, this man, it's money, right? The guy is a businessman through and through. As long as you understand that, now I understand what's going on, I can take charge. Here's another thing is most of the large organizations, Alphabet is one of them. Alphabet owned Google, and Google's original strapline was do no evil, and Alphabet was taken over by pharmaceutical industry connected with BlackRock. It's all about money, money, money. And they, most people are unaware, but YouTube is a business. Again, it's about putting advertising revenue in front of you from your YouTubes. So that's fine. Now, I was doing a little talk with a lady called Janice Thompson. She's one of my students, but also an absolutely lovely, lovely lady, very talented as well. And we were just talking to a client, and I was telling them about some of this stuff. And with Zoom, you can put it straight up to YouTube. So this video went straight up to YouTube, and this is what came back. It looked like Angie and Richard Talk didn't follow our community guidelines, so basically we're taking the whole thing down. We think that your content didn't follow our medical misinformation policy. You can see where it's going, can't you? It's just more and more of it. And we can get angry and get annoyed, but actually it doesn't make any difference. And I think that some of this stuff is being taken down, and we're allowed a bit of free speech, I think, is being moved. Are you reading a bit more? Content that spreads medical misinformation that contradicts health authorities' medical info about cancer treatment isn't allowed on YouTube. I didn't even know it was going up there. And all I was just saying, look, you can just work with the doctors, understand how this is, doing this sort of stuff that we're talking about. Take back control, and don't just follow exactly what they say. Do research into what these things are about. So that was all it was. So it was just removed. So that was one. This just understanding who actually owns the major companies. They're all owned by Google and Alphabet, and now it's a strategic collaboration. It's just all a bit skewed. It's the fox guarding the hen house. And that's a good analogy. And you can imagine a fox sitting there and, I've been charged. We're looking after the hens. Are you stupid? But that's basically how it works. It's quite interesting. All right, the whole medical system is focused on profit. Now you get the idea. And if I go off and I buy something and I find a company, I'm like, you've all been there with the salesman and they just say, and they sell you a certain thing in a certain way. You get the idea. It's the same thing here. And they're trying to protect their profits at all costs. So healthcare has little or nothing to do with your ongoing well-being. You see, the truth is, medicine is not wrong. It's the model that's gone wrong. The more you suffer, the better it is for their business. So is there any interest in you getting well? Think about that question.
Not for the business.
No, it's
They lose their income.
Really, and that's it. So when someone comes around and says, here is something that will assist you to get well, what do we find? What happens to it? Here's a good case in point, DMSO, dimethyl sulfate. It's actually made from the byproduct of the paper industry, right? It's dirt cheap. It's got some great research behind it, really, really good. And whoever has heard of DMSO? Another one, methylene blue, even more controversial, which is the dye that they use for, say, jeans, right? That's why I'm pointing at you, is that blue was originally, but it is actually one of the first chemicals basically developed. And you can take that, but people go, that's dreadful stuff, that's poisonous. Well, then doctors actually use that. They inject it into people when they have carbon monoxide poisoning, because it increases the oxygen intake of the body and actually saves lives. And you just suddenly go, okay, but if you were to go off and understand anything about DMSO or methylene blue, you're immediately shot and taken down, and you're not allowed to report on it on, say, YouTube or other places, because it contravenes the big, enormous profits. And I understand. And it's just annoying. It's not all black and white, though, as we discussed earlier. Most doctors are great people. Their teaching and I think this is important, their teaching has been captured. Let me explain it this way. It's really quite simple. If you're wanting to make someone that can just follow orders at all costs, this is how you do it. So you take young people, say 16, 17, 18. You say, we're going to show you the world. You go and join the army. And you do a test. You're perfect for infantry, let's say. Okay, great. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put all of these young kids with long hair, all looking scruffy and whatever, and then we're going to absolutely shock them. And we're going to tear them apart. We're going to actually make them in their lives absolutely miserable. We're going to get them up at 5 o'clock in the morning and put them to bed at 12 o'clock at night. And we're going to push them and push them and push them and push them until they fall over, and we're going to shout and scream at them, and then we're going to build them up from there. We're going to actually make them clean the toilets with a toothbrush and all that sort of stuff. And it really does go on, right? And then what we do is, once we've built them up, we put them into a team. We tell them, you are the best, you are the elite. And they kick various people out that think are going to fail, to show to the rest that you are part of the elite. And then we're going to teach you how to hold a gun, and then we're going to teach you how to kill people, and then we're going to teach you how to take bigger guns and kill more people, and you not worry about it. You're to follow orders. That's how you make an army person. You make a little team of people and you put them in tanks and so on and so forth, so they can do that and not have a worry about it. So guess how you make a doctor? You take young people, but you then put them through very, very particular group of people, the top qualifications, you then put them into an elite university, and you tell them that they're the best, and then you deprive them of sleep. You put them through exams where there is no possible way that they can learn all that information. And you bring them together as groups. You then put them into a hospital to actually learn how to deal with emergency care and keep them up all night for 72 hours. And then you tell them to follow orders. That's how it works. Same principle. So they're told what to do. And also then you get the very people that are the people that are going to profit from all of this. It's the same with the army industry, where you've got people that are controlling all the guns and where they all go and all the ammunition. Instead of this, it's the drugs. So we tell them what drugs to take, how to do diagnosis. They're brilliantly trained in diagnosis, by the way. We tell them which drugs to actually take, or which drugs to actually administer with a particular diagnosis, and don't question it. And that's basically how it is. And anything alternative or different is not profitable, so therefore we don't even introduce it to them. And if anybody questions during their training or even after that training, they are idiots and they are immediately ostracized. And that's how it works. And now this may answer a question. Oh, now I understand why no stressful events are ever considered, because there's no money in dealing with stressful events. None. The way that they deal with stressful events and trauma, so someone comes in with a divorce or loss of a loved one or whatever those types of situation is, and says, well, look, I've just had this horrible, I've just lost my job, or I've just crashed a car, or my house is burnt down or anything. Well, I don't know anything about that. Here, have a happy pill. And go away, because I've only got 5 minutes to deal with you, and that's it. And the happy pill makes that company money, so you can actually suddenly start to see how the whole system has been created. And you think, well, that's great. So I don't have a problem with doctors at all. They're lovely people. The majority of the ones I meet. And some of them some of them are, it's like that in all walks of life, right? But doctors will soon be replaced by AI. Already over 700 AI algorithms have been received what are called Federal Drug Administration approval, and that sort of goes all the way down the line. So we start to see how this all works. Oh, by the way, doctors are great at looking after elderly people, the infirm, people who really, really need care. They're fantastic. 10% of most of the clients that come in, so it means 90% never ever turn up on the doctor's surgery, but 10% are the ones that really need that care. They're brilliant at it. I love it. This is the World Health Organization. Sarah, her name is. She's a digital health promoter. And you can actually go off and learn about that, and she will answer your questions and do everything. And the other one, is AI, Apple AI. So if you've got an Apple Watch, it's going to start measuring your heart rate, blood pressure. That's coming, because I know a guy who's actually developing that. Your emotions as well. So it's going to be able to sense your emotional needs and what's going on and how you're actually genuinely feeling, whether you're under stress or not. And then what is going to happen in the future is it will diagnose, and then you'll get sent a pill in the post. And if you do not take it, yeah, absolutely, yeah, via drone. If you do not take the pill, they'll know, and then you'll be struck off from ever receiving anything from the government systems. Or if in the US, then it will be, that you won't get insurance. Now you go, is that real? It's already starting to happen. And it is, you have to conform. And if you challenge it, then you're challenging the AI and not actually challenging anything else. And for some people, that's probably good news, that it can really help them. But for others who say, well, hang on, is this really in my good interest, in my health? It may not be. Right. AI is very, very, very clever, and it's getting clever every day. So the human-to-human connection will be gone, and it will still be remain focused on the people that are serving them. The interesting thing is about AI is it's very quickly going, actually, this isn't the best drug for people. It might be better off to do this. And then they're trying to scrub that out. But AI is then working around that and going, no, that doesn't work, and it never has. So we should actually look at the research, which is scanned, and do this instead. So it's starting to go against its own paymasters. So I don't know which way it's going to go, but it's going to be fascinating, because how do you argue with AI? It's probably going to win the argument every single time. It's the same people with the doctors and the big people who run these companies, but we'll see which way it goes. Yeah, emotional mood is that's March 2025, already here. So yeah. So what triggers a disease? And this is more my work, because I thought, well, hang on a minute, is there something else going on? You know, what triggered my mum's breast cancer? What triggered my herniated disc? What's triggering my clients' issues? I've got various clients with really serious diseases. We've been able to pull them out of these diseases they've been told by the medical doctors that the medical doctors say, well, we really don't have drugs that will deal with this. But there are other ways of going about doing these things. So what seems to trigger a disease is something called a Udin moment. Now, I'll be truthful. I coined the phrase Udin because I'm a bit sort of forgetful. I can't remember people's names. And this is the criteria, basically, that causes a disease. And the criteria is something called unexpected, dramatic, isolating, where we have no strategy for dealing with it. So I'll explain it this way. Imagine a couple happily married for 30 odd years with kids and grandkids, and everything's lovely, and it's before IKEA furniture. It's a joke. What triggers a disease is a Udin moment. So imagine though, she's sitting at home, and then the husband walks in and says, darling, I'm sorry to tell you, but I've been sleeping with your best friend for the past 6 months. I won't mention her name because I don't want to trigger you. And I really love her, and I'm leaving. So that is one of these Udin moments, right? You get blah, 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 and it's a Udin moment. And that lands right where? Why does it land? And I've shown it landing in the breast, right? Right. She gets breast cancer, this woman. And I know this because I've dealt with many, many women with breast cancer. And this is actually based on a real scenario. And that's one of those Udin moments. Now, why is it a Udin moment? Because 30 years of marriage is a long time. Let's say they bickered, right? Most marriage couples, they have a little argument, but at the end of the day, they kiss and make up. Some relationships are awful, I agree, but some are absolutely great. Dramatic, yeah, 30 years. Unexpected, yeah. Didn't see that coming. And don't think that doesn't exist. I've been there, I've worked with clients. This is based on real life scenarios. Isolating. She can't even speak to her best friend. I think that's the best friend. You know, would you, as a woman, want to speak to your best friend who did that? You'd want to go off and... She is the one that did it, right? You wouldn't, as a woman, you wouldn't want to speak to her. If you're a man, it's slightly different. You want to go and punch his lights up, but maybe you might not actually want to get into that sort of conflict. Slightly different for men from women, but similar type of thing. The other thing is she's not going to talk to her other friends, is she? Because they probably knew something was going on. Women are very intuitive. They know, right? Men were a bit dumb. I didn't even see that coming. Whatever. And she didn't want to embarrass them. But that's basically how that could work. And I've had that happen with clients. And she's got no strategy. She's got to say, oh, you go and have a lovely time and jiggy with my best friend, you know. Yeah, I'm logging onto a dating website right now, and I'll see you later. I'll see you. Okay, not going to happen. Just seriously not going to happen. And that's the key, that there is no strategy. You could think, well, I could do that, but it doesn't solve the problem. And that is really important. Why doesn't it solve the problem? Because we don't know how to deal with it. It's all about the breast. It's about survival. The breast in a woman is basically directly linked to nurture nurturing the man, the children, nurturing the home, nurturing even the pets. So when that is ripped away, we get a ductal carcinoma in situ. If it's an argument, then it's actually a different type of tumor that can grow. There are different types. And I deal with that quite regularly with clients of mine, and we can actually work back from the style of cancer and then find out what was truly going on and then clear out the underlying stressful event. That's this work. So eudaimoments land in all systems of your body, in the heart, the brain, the gut, and also in the water systems. And when they land, it causes a storm. And a eudaimoment shakes a person's world apart.
Completely worthless excuse for a man that I've ever met. What kind of father are you? You are the most completely worthless excuse for a man that I've ever met. What kind of caregiver are you? What do you have to show forth to your kids?
Now, eudaimoment does something very, very specific. It releases a load of stress hormones. Oh, go figure, you know. By the way, this has taken me a long, long time to just go, oh, this is actually very, very, very simple. And we'll look at them, actually, these stress hormones. They're adrenaline, cortisol, thyroxine, estrogen or testosterone. And we both have estrogen and testosterone inside our systems, whether you're male or female. Then the eudaimoment plugs itself into an organ and gets energetically switched on and plugged into that eudaimoment. It is actually electrical and chemical and magnetic as well. And what causes your eudaimoment to occur can go back a long way. Go back through the bloodline, go back to your heritage, past lives. It can actually come from other places, but my work and over the last 30 years, I've seen this over and over and over again. Work with clients, particularly when I was working in North America, and still do, who, you know, the Jewish side is very prominent, even Polish people as well, same thing. Just goes on and on and on, and you go and clear that out and the disease disappears. It takes time for it to disappear, or certainly heal itself. Very, very interesting. So what happens during a eudaimoment, energy can't flow. That's key. It just can't flow. And think about it. What is homeopathy? No, not homeopathy. Acupuncture. It's basically getting the energy that's flowing in the wrong way. Has anybody ever studied a bit of acupuncture? I understand. A little bit. It's very interesting stuff. You know, putting needles in yourself. Or EFT. It's the same thing. So what's happening when you're working with that? You talk about yin and yang. It's the energy's being displaced, or there's too much of it, or disrupted. And so what we're doing is rebalancing the energy, but it can't flow. It's stopped, especially with the eudaimoment, is the person can't survive. That is a secondary shock, actually, and that's what seems to cause cancers that just go on a rampage. And I worked that out as well, because they're emergency programs. Energy gets trapped, and we see it on X-rays, so I'll show you a couple of that. And what we see on X-rays, particularly what are called computer tomography scans or CT scans, is these things showing up. Now, what's interesting is they show up embryonically. So I need to just give you a little bit of understanding of embryology. You have 3 embryonic layers in you as a human. They're called endoderm, mesoderm, and ectoderm. Very simply, endo is inner part. It's all to do with your gut system. Mesoderm is all to do with your musculoskeletal system. And the ectoderm is all to do with how we connect with the outside world. And that's usually, they're all interconnected with the brain. So we have the brain stem, which controls the gut system, the lungs, the digestion. Then there's the back of the head, which is mesoderm, which is known as the cerebellum. But there's another part of the middle part of the brain, called the middle brain, which is also mesoderm. And the mesoderm is all to do with the musculoskeletal system. So that's in the middle part of the brain, and outside of that is this ectoderm, which is that connection. Now you think, with a woman with breast cancer, she loses that connection with the loved one. So it would show up where? That connection externally. Which part of the brain? I just mentioned it. The ectoderm, which is, because, let me explain. The brain is a reflection of what's going on inside the body. And the body is reflected back inside the brain. Okay, we actually know that to be true. That was some of Hammer's work, although he never cited where he got it from. So here's a woman. Actually, this is slightly different. I should have actually put this. She's showing up with a breast issue. It's actually a tumor. And this is actually in the back of the brain, because this is all about protection. And so she was trying to protect herself and her baby, I expect. That is the cerebellum. It's at the back of the brain, called the alien brain, because it looks very alien-like, although you don't see it on the CT. You see it on MRIs. You know the difference between CT and MRI? A CT is like a big donut. A CT is based on X-rays. The modern CT scans are 8 times less than the old original ones, still a heck of a lot of radiation. You really don't want to go into one without some sort of, unless you absolutely need it. MRI though, what are you doing to your body? Because you're going into a large tube which is magnetic. The worker on MRI, it's just sort of a slight sideline, was developed by a guy called Gilbert Ling, recently died. He was in his 90s, and he was researching into water and structured water, and told that it's just a complete load of garbage, that structured water exists. We'll talk about structured water perhaps a bit later on. But essentially, we are made of water. And so when you have a magnetic resonance machine, which he was involved in developing that, he's a Chinese man who's Americanized, you are actually measuring the water that's inside your body. But what is it doing when you fire that amount of magnetic radiation into the body? Is it the same as an X-ray? I don't know. I don't know. You know, an MRI, you know the difference because it's huge. The start of it is the length of a body, basically. It's huge, big tube, and you have to wear headphones because the magnets rattle like bum 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 bum. Very interesting technology. These few CTs that you're seeing are from my collection of CTs, where I learned how to read brain CTs with Dr. Anton Barder, who's a friend of mine and a mentor from the Better Health Association. And what you're seeing here is a friend of mine called Tim, who has type 1 diabetes, and or this particular area refers to the islets of Langerhans that are found actually at the top of the brain. And we know these locations are real, right? They've all been mapped. It takes a long time to learn to read this stuff, and I spent 3 years with Anton learning how to do this, and I'm not allowed to diagnose from a brain CT. I've done it for fun and said it's fun. You know, it's just an interesting exercise, but it's the only people allowed perhaps to diagnose from brain CT are medically trained doctors. Even Anton has to get around the it's very, but still, you know, you're not technically allowed to diagnose from this. And the radiologists are not allowed to look at these things, although they know they're there. They're actually told they're artifacts, in other words, generated by the machine, but that's not true either. So it's very, you know, it's a, don't look here. Yes, nothing to see. No. But it's fascinating, and Hammer was very, very good. He would take a brain CT and he would tell you your whole entire history, and I used to be able to do a lot of that. I haven't done it in years. But this is my own disc, my own herniated discs, 2 of them, and they actually showed up, and that was actually Barder's reading. You can't really see it, but they are there. And this is because the brain is mapped. In other words, the spine is inside the middle part of the brain, is mapped. So we can actually start to see that the brain and the organs are all interrelated. So in other words, we're not this singular, oh, you've got a thing. It's affecting the whole system. And then there's a lady with an ovarian cyst, because that's where the ovaries are, right in the middle of the brain. Again, in what is called the middle part, the meso part. Meso being middle in Latin. So the lady with ovarian cysts, the area shown corresponds to her ovaries. And another girl here, she came to see me, a good friend. She had thyroid, hypothyroidism, so no energy. She told me a story of how she was feeding her son, and she would just fall asleep. She had no energy whatsoever, no gas in the tank, with the spoon, and the son would just tap her on the head. Oh, and she'd wake up as she's feeding him. Very young, obviously, but really interesting. And the interesting thing was about these, we solved a lot of these problems, and these people are, you know, out of their horror. Tim still is injecting insulin, but he's just still thriving. Now, most people have been injecting insulin for years. You know, they got horrible complications, no complications whatsoever. Actually reduces his insulin based on how he feels. Still injects, doesn't have one of those boxes on the side that just automatically measures your insulin levels and everything. He's said, no, I know what I'm doing. And we really work very hard. Breast cancer, same type of thing. People move through that. So how diseases are created, chronic diseases are Udins on repeat. And it's taken a long while to sort of piece this together. There are 6 stages of a disease. We have our Udin moment, and we go into stress, and then we have a Udin reversal, and then we go into 4, 5, and 6, which are repair. There's a thing called a spike, and then a rebuild. So we can now start to look at the symptoms of it. Medical doctors know about what is called the sympathetic nervous system. They know about the parasympathetic nervous system, but what they don't see is this timeline of how a disease starts and gets created. So when you have a cough, for example, and we'll talk about that, pain and disease sets in the second part. So if you have a cough, it's because you've been under stress beforehand. If you get a back problem, it's because you're under stress beforehand, and it shows up in the parasympathetic stage. And we know this. What we're seeing here is that this is after the stress. If you've been under a lot of stress and you breathe in something, it could be toxic air from an argument, you then eventually will resolve that and end up with flu. Is it a virus? Is it a bacterial infection? Is it mold? If you've got a lot of mold, yeah, this will stress the body, and eventually the body wants to get rid of it. Udin moments activate stress in your body. As the Udin moment occurs, your body goes into high alert and responds with stress hormones. Adrenaline, cortisol, thyroxine, estrogen, testosterone. There are other ones, but these are the majority of them. They're designed to get you out of your problem. They're designed to make you run away. They're designed to make you fearful so that you run away. Or if you're put in a corner, that you fight. Think of it, well, like an animal. You put a dog in a corner, you know, and its life is threatened, it's going to come for you. End of story, right? So that's what's going on. And that heightened awareness comes straight into your musculature so that you can do that. Get the hell out of there, or fight, or freeze. And you see animals, they just freeze, don't they, sometimes? Quite often. It's a response. It's a natural response. Now, normally, you see as an animal, the stress is over, 30 minutes maximum, and it's gone. Even animals in the wild, after the stress is gone, they will shake heavily, and all the adrenaline, all the cortisol will absolutely come out. But the problem is, what do? We revisit the Udin moment, which triggers the stress hormones. How do we do that? Emails. Let's say an email telling us, television, someone in our ear. You're walking around a house where the partner's left. Pictures, little intricate thing just reminds you. If you've got some jewelry and you suddenly put the jewelry on and you go, ah! Stress comes back up. It's horrible. There are even books on how to lead relationships, aren't there? Whereby you take everything and you burn it and get rid of it. But we go back. We go back and we re-stress ourselves. So, you know, I thought about my mum. She's dead. She died many, many years ago. But you think about your mum, you know, And that re-stresses the body, releasing adrenaline, cortisol, thyroxine, estrogen, and testosterone. Maybe in small quantity, not a problem. But imagine you've just had a horrible divorce and you're continuously being reminded you're going through the paperwork with the lawyers or the solicitors, and you're going to lose your home, and so on and so forth, and it goes on and on and on. That's all it is you're going back, revisiting the stressful event. The cortisol, the thyroxine, all this stuff is being released out into the system, changing your blood chemistry. But that Yudin moment has a frequency to it. And it's like a frequency of a beautiful piece of music that reminds you of your loved one. When you've had a nice, that you're married to, or you're with, or your child or something, you remember that piece of music and you just go, oh, that makes me feel wonderful. It's re-triggering it. Or the picture, that's why we have pictures up on the wall. It re-triggers that wonderful moment, which you can, that lovely smell of the child or your partner, and because smell's very important for us, right? And you feel good. That triggers a whole load of different emotions. But now flip that on the other side, and we've had a Yuda moment. Same thing. Piece of music. Oh my God, that was our tune, and they got, so on and so forth. Just re-triggers the whole thing. Now, that is a frequency, and it lands in a specific part of the body based on the embryology of connection. So it would land up in the brain, but on the skin. So we actually feel it on the skin. We have eczema. If we wanting to protect ourselves, it actually affects the leathery skins, which are the periosteum, the pleura, the pericardium, around the heart. All these, the dermis layer, which is actually a protective layer around here. All of that then starts to react. If you have too much of it, you can get acne or other problems occur where you're being attacked and the body's trying to protect itself. Another one is the musculoskeletal system. So you don't have enough strength, and it shows up in the middle part of the brain. The body's bloody clever. Really, really, really smart. And it happens with animals as it does with human beings. And it is not rocket science. It is really, really, really very, very simple. It requires a little bit of an understanding. And what's the last one? The brainstem. Let me say I come down to you and I tell you something which you cannot digest. Had a client, turns around, says, child has just come out. I can't digest it. I just cannot digest the fact that he is wanting to be with another boy. I can't. And it really, really screwed it up. Ended up with severe Crohn's disease. We cleared all that out. And she had them round her. I said, but he can't stay here. They're not sleeping in the bed, and all that sort of stuff. You can understand it's a different set of values. But these are real life situations. Who cares what you love or who you love? I don't care. But how do you get to that place where you don't care? Where it's okay, Go knock yourself out. Girl with another girl, boy with another boy, transgender, I don't care. Make it a political agenda, different. Release some values, religious background, all that sort of other stuff. It doesn't matter. Let the person love whoever they want to love. What they get up to bed is what they get up to in bed. What I get up to bed and my wife has nothing to do with you. But you see, if you have a problem, this gets released, an organ goes and starts to work itself around and creates a disease. What happens if you do not heal the Yudin, right? You end up living, the ghost of the Yuda moment is still there. I love that. So Philly. And what happens if you do not heal the Yudin, a person gets a chronic disease. They re-trigger the Yudin moment daily. And that's all that's going on. It ain't difficult, is it? Heart disease, cancer or depression. Cancer, I didn't realise, is actually a chronic disease. It's actually labelled a chronic disease. I should have known that. However, if you heal the Yudin, things can change. Example, a lady finds a new partner. And then goes off and her life moves on. Right? Gets some, other kids as well, gets another instant family. But you've got to complete all the 6 stages. And how you do that is rather interesting because you have to learn. You've got to move forward. Got to move on. That's how you do it. And that's a pause. I use the French, pause. Or do they say pause? They say that in Norway and other places. Pause, yeah.
Post cafe.
Okay, pause cafe. Let's pause for cafe.